So I've been sitting and I've been feeling and I've been watching videos on healing, and I have been journaling and I've been meditating, and I went for a really long walk today with this guy. And I've been just sitting down and writing down anything that I feel like I need to process through. And I have a couple of journals. I mean, I have them literally around the whole entire house. This one I use when I read books. Like the book that I'm reading right now is Mindfulness. And while watching the videos on YouTube, I also write down notes. Like at a class that educates you on your emotional well-being, so to speak. So jotting it down and journaling about it and feeling your feelings. And I've been talking about triggers and talking about environmental triggers and universal triggers and personal triggers and people that trigger you, events that trigger you. And triggers are a representation of things that you have to focus on and you have to deal with and you have to heal. People triggering you also has to do with inner work that you need to get into, or a pattern that really triggers you. Triggers. It's like a fire that was just put out and there's only 3 or 4 sparks left on it, and you're kind of trying to suppress it and you don't want to relight it, and then you happen to grab a piece of paper and place it on top of these embers and they just light a blaze. A trigger works like that. I think he's a squirrel. So some people in our lives can trigger us, can trigger memories, can trigger patterns, can trigger friends that are actually our friends, but something might have happened along the way, and there's a reason that something happened along the way that still sort of sits with us and we get triggered by it. And then for somebody who feels as deeply as I do, and for somebody who is surrounded by a lot of people in this community that feel very deeply, that have to do the shadow work, that have to do what needs to be done to sort of get past their abandonment issues, their traumas, their emotional issues, because they understand that there's something else on the other side of it, that there's like a better life on the other side of the pain that they feel. And we're at a point in our lives where we are getting sick and tired of the same repetitive patterns. We don't want the same partners to be repeated. We don't want the same dead-end jobs to be repeated. We don't want to just sit at home, although it's a wonderful thing sometimes to completely disconnect, but we want to be able to explore the world around us. And I needed to come in here because I had a quick epiphany and I had a quick message come through. And basically what I heard while I was there was, when you have somebody outside of your life that you might have had an issue with, like an old partner or a friend that you transcended from one type of relationship that you had to another type of relationship that you had, and they thought of being around them after a conflict, or the thought about being near them, or the reason why you feel maybe in a friendship that things have been status quo, but something's going on and you feel this sort of the pit of your stomach and you can't decide and decipher what's going on with this relationship, why they make you feel a certain way. If somebody's making you feel a certain way, it's not the person's fault for what the feelings that are being risen within you. These feelings that are being risen within you are your responsibility to figure out. Yes, if they've pissed you, if they did something really, really terrible to you, or they stole money from you, or they were just really negative or violent towards you, that obviously you're sort of, they cause you a certain feeling. What I'm talking about is just going to get coffee with an old long lost friend and leaving the coffee get together in conversation and feeling just really off, jealous, upset, sad, confused, uncomfortable. These are feelings that you have to reflect within yourselves. And my main message here right now is this: anything that you feel internally just from a conversation about the weather with a certain person that is in front of you, vibrationally speaking, where you're uncomfortable in your own skin and you feel triggered, like unhappy, sad, or worthless, or confused or lost, this is from your inner work that you're putting together. And you looking at somebody else's life in reflection of your life is one of the biggest mistakes you could make, because we are all one love, and we are all on this journey together, and we're all recovering from some kind of trauma or something that has happened to us in past relationships or past lives, and we're all on this journey together. Some of us want to dive really deep down into these darkness, into these pieces that we want to sort of examine slowly, to welcome them as part of who you are, of who we are. We want to accept our darkest parts. We want to accept our shadows. Some of the people in our lives are relationships that we've made along the way while we were in this dark spot where we didn't recognize our own feelings. So they're probably not on the same journey that we're at right now. So when we're vibrating at a higher vibration, and we are doing the shadow work, and we are dealing with these traumas, and we are dealing with these negative feelings like anger and fear and sadness, we are diving deep into this work, which require us to sort of isolate and separate from a lot of different people. And if you have been dealing with these traumas and hiding behind pointless sexual partners, and now you've reached a point in your life where those pointless sexual partners no longer serve you, you're now breaking up with these people and pushing them away, which brings you to sort of this level of solidarity. Well, you are spending a lot more time by yourself because now you have switched this vibration to a higher vibration to increase the level of people that are actually trying to do the shadow work that you're doing. These friends that have been in your life and past relationships that are still part of your life, they're still there because they're part of your life and they're meaningful to you, but you can't look at the way that you're doing your shadow work and disconnecting from these like relationships that are now gross to you and comparing your life to their life. They're not trying to increase their vibration at the level that you're trying to increase it. And maybe they're in the same path as you're on, but everybody evolves differently and everybody processes information differently, and you can't compare yourself to somebody else. So if somebody else in your journey has reached a point where they're in a really happy relationship and you're still doing the shadow work and you're coming up empty and they're triggering these sense of abandonment, of lack of self-worth, this is something that you still need to sort of deal with. And you also have to remember this. If you are meeting somebody at a lower vibration, when you're still working through your stuff and you're still angry that you're angry, sad that you're sad, and upset that you're not happy, you're not healing through it and accepting that these are parts of who you are. So your vibration is lower. So you're clinging on to these lower vibrational energies when you're in that stage. So if these people in your life are currently dating or in a happy relationship and they just look happy from the outside, but they're just tired of like kind of sort of A-okay, this person's fine, so they're settling, you have to understand that you comparing yourself to being alone while you're trying to be in your body and in your feelings, and understanding that we are a yin and a yang. We are a positive and a negative. Nothing else gets charged. The internal alchemy cannot happen without two opposing forces. You cannot find the light in the shadows, and the shadows are somewhere around the light. Like, there are shadows. No matter how much light you put on something, there will always be a shadow. And no matter how much shadow you put on something, there will always be light coming through. Think of it that way. So you comparing your lack to somebody else's gain when they're not putting in the work, basically the majority of people around you that are putting in the work but are clinging on and being attached or only talking about these relationships that they're having with these people because they feel like that is what defines you and it defines you as a person, as a human being. These people are vibrating a lower vibration and are okay with settling. And if you're okay with settling, then by all means. But the majority of us are doing internal work, are accepting the fact that we're not perfect. We're accepting the fact that we have so much darkness that we all have to cipher through. So, first of all, to conclude this rant, accept yourself for who you are. Accept your traumas, accept your pain, accept your sadness, accept it. It will eat you up alive and it will start wars if you don't face your anger and your frustration. It'll come out roaring its nasty head somewhere and somehow. Second of all, Pay attention to the amount of people around you that have settled or that are settling and that are not ready to leap forward. There is nothing wrong with them. They're just not ready to leap forward. Love them and accept them if they're respectful members of your family or respectful, loving members of your circle. If not, if they're negative and they're mean and they're terrible and they're bullying you, get rid of them. I promise you. The more lower vibrational beings you eject out of your life, the more higher vibrational beings you have in your life. But if they're just not ready to accept where you're at, in the sense that they're not ready to put in the work, love them unconditionally as they love you unconditionally. There always should be unconditional love. There are no rules for love. 3, again, I'm going to reiterate 1, do not compare your life or your journey to anybody else's. Don't. And pay attention to how other people make you feel. You have to be aware of your internal compass and your internal energies. You have to. You owe it to yourself to be in that level where it's okay to say, no, I don't want to meet for drinks today. I have a lot of internal shit to deal with. It's okay to reach a point where you say that you don't want to reply to texts, or that you just want to hibernate and just heal as much as you possibly can. It's okay. Everything's okay. And everybody in your life that comes into your life, that is in your life, that leaves your life, is there because they belong there until they no longer serve a purpose and don't love you unconditionally. Unconditional love doesn't have any rules or regulations, and it doesn't have any lack of respect for boundaries. So, that's it. Deep breaths. Keep going. Man, it's been a happy couple of weeks. Bye, guys. Love and light, always.